Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome into NHL Today over here on the grid. I'm Joe Madden, and I will be joined by Tom Vecchio in the next segment to talk his favorite bets coming up on tomorrow's slate. But we first got to jump into what we saw out there last night in the Four Nations. Now, going into this tournament, I don't think we really knew what we were going to get out of these players and how much drive they were going to come out playing with for their nations, and they did not disappoint. It was definitely a win for the league, as so many people did tune in to see Team USA and Team Canada play in that final game last night. Now, the outcome was Team Canada able to get the win, but Team USA didn't go away easy. This was a game that was pushed all the way to OT, with Canada winning 3-2. Now, Connor McDavid did seal the deal with the overtime goal there with a pass from Mitch Marner. It was an absolutely beautiful goal, with Team USA leaving him alone in the slot, which I still shake my head how he was able to get space out there and be left in that position to score that goal on Connor Hellebuyck. Now, we did see Nathan MacKinnon open up the scoring yesterday, and he was given MVP of the Four Nations final game there for Team Canada, and well-deserved. Nathan MacKinnon played fantastic out there throughout the whole tournament. But I really do think you've got to tip your hat to Jordan Binnington and how strong he was able to come out in the Four Nations final game there. Now, during the tournament, there was a lot of talk about how Canada had the weakest goaltending, with Jordan Binnington, Aiden Hill, Sam Montembeault, and I was one of those people who was looking at that factor thinking maybe Team Canada won't get it done. Now, Jordan Binnington did allow a couple of soft goals during the tournament, but yesterday, when things came to shove, he absolutely stood on his head. He made some incredible saves out there between the pipes, and we did see the style of hockey he was able to play back in Boston in 2009 when he was able to win in Game 7 for the St. Louis Blues. In that game, he was lights out, and that is exactly what we saw out of Jordan Binnington in last night's matchup versus Team USA. Now, Team USA did make a really big push in overtime, and it looked like they were going to be able to seal the deal, but Jordan Binnington, again, made save after save in that one. Austin Matthews had 3 attempts to get that puck in the back of the net and just wasn't able to do so. And it leaves a lot of people with questions how Austin Matthews really can't step up in these big games and what we're going to see out of Toronto going in to the playoffs, and if they will be able to make it out of the first round. And if they do, if they'll be able to make it out of the second round this upcoming season. So it's really interesting with what we saw yesterday. The stars, the big players really came to play when they needed to. We saw Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, and Nathan MacKinnon, a star-studded lineup here for Team Canada, get it done. So it was a great performance out of them. But again, I have to tip my hat to Team USA. Connor Hellebuyck letting that goal in overtime was super emotional out there. That team just felt shot in the foot, and I don't blame them there because it was a game of inches. Both of those teams had the ability to win. So Team USA, Team Canada, both need to hold their head high after what we saw in that performance last night. And hockey overall, they gained some fans over this Four Nations tournament, and I really do think it's a great preparation for the Olympics next year. And we're going to have a lot more people tuning into hockey. And with that being said, we are going into a full slate of hockey tomorrow. 14 games out there on the board. And there's a couple of storylines to look at here. We do have the Winnipeg Jets rolling hot out of the break. They were hot going into it. Hopefully they can roll hot coming out of it. It will be Connor Hellebuyck versus Jordan Binnington with the St. Louis Blues. So we will see if we will see either of them in net. Right now, it's Joel Hofer expected for the St. Louis Blues. As for the Winnipeg Jets, they are listing Connor Hellebuyck as the expected goaltender. I would think they would give him the night off, but we will see. Talking about the players that were playing in the Four Nations, there's so many players up and down the board that we did see. And a lot of these teams, multiple players as well. The Washington Capitals being the only team other than the San Jose Sharks that didn't have any players represented in the Four Nations. So you've got to look for the Capitals to come out nice and strong as we go into the later part of the season. But I also want to note the playmakers that you really have to watch that might not be hitting the ice. Now, we know Matthew Tkachuk only played just under 7 minutes in the final game yesterday for Team USA. He was so impactful for that team in the first game versus Canada, but he did sustain an injury. We didn't see him in the next game versus Sweden, and now his likelihood of playing for Florida over the next couple of games is in jeopardy. We're unsure what that injury is. Brady Tkachuk saying that if his brother did miss that overtime period against Canada, like we saw him do, it must be serious out there. And of course, Brady Tkachuk, not a doctor, but you've got to wonder the status of Matthew Tkachuk and what we're going to find out. When we look at Shea Theodore of the Vegas Golden Knights, he did take a broken wrist in the Four Nations faceoff. So defensively, we're going to have question marks around Vegas and what we're going to see with the pairings out there for Vegas. They will face the Vancouver Canucks tomorrow. We know it can be such a potent offense, especially on the road for the Vancouver Canucks. And then Charlie McAvoy here of the Boston Bruins, he sustained an injury in the very first game out, and now he did play 20 minutes in that first matchup on Saturday versus Team Canada. The defenseman here for Boston then out and facing an infection in his AC joint. So how long he's going to be out for Boston is going to be a huge question mark. Now the Boston Bruins will face the Anaheim Ducks. And we know Brad Marchand coming out for Boston should be rolling with that high after getting the win with Team Canada. So lots of players that we can look at going into Saturday's game, how they're going to perform. Overall, the Canadian players will have celebrated last night. We know that celebration will roll into today. They've got to hit the ice on Saturday. So there might be a couple of positions, couple players that we do want to fade for their likelihood of maybe getting those shots on goal. But I do think overall, you've got to look at the Florida Panthers, what's going to happen without Matthew Tkachuk on the board. The Vegas Golden Knights without Shea Theodore, and then the Boston Bruins without Charlie McAvoy. That's going to be huge defensively for those teams. But like I said, we've got 14 games that we're going to see. The first game, the puck will drop at 12:30 Eastern tomorrow between the Minnesota Wild and the Detroit Red Wings. We'll then get into the matchup at 1 p.m. Eastern between the Edmonton Oilers and the Philadelphia Flyers. This is one of the higher totals of the day between these two. We have a total coming in at 6.5. Now we know Connor McDavid should be lighting things up again. Will he need a couple of moments to get back acclimated with his team out there after playing with likelihoods of Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon? And what are we going to see out of Leon Draisaitl? Leon Draisaitl right now, the front runner for the Hart Award, but it's easy for him to be shadowed out here by the superstar Connor McDavid. So I do think Leon Draisaitl, another player that you want to watch coming out of this. He's got to feel pretty rough, I guess I would say, not being included in the Four Nations, the best of the best. There's so many players out there, you guys, that really did deserve to be in these lineups, and I think Leon Draisaitl is one of them. So I'm going to be circling him tomorrow versus the Philadelphia Flyers. I think he's a great player to look at for his anytime goals on the board. And then we have the matchup between the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Alex Ovechkin versus Sidney Crosby. Alex Ovechkin, of course, not part of the Four Nations, the Russian player out here versus Sidney Crosby. These two have had some fantastic meetings over the years. I believe it's 72 meetings in their careers together. Sidney Crosby, of course, part of Team Canada, getting the win last night. And Ovechkin looking to chase Wayne Gretzky's records. Now, he is coming up to that number, you guys, and you can still get in Ovechkin for the record breaker over Wayne Gretzky. It's coming in at plus 190 if you think he will reach it. And I absolutely think he's going to be able to get there. So nice future you can look at Ovechkin. We're going to dive more into those numbers. But firstly, we're going to talk to Tom Vecchio. We're going to look at his best bets coming into tomorrow's games, get his quick take on the Four Nations and what he saw out there. So you guys make sure you stick around here on the grid for NHL today. I'm Joe Madden, and again, Tom Vecchio will be up after the break.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter, and the league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I mean, it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into NHL Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Joe Madden, and I am joined by Tom Vecchio. Now, Tom, before we dive into tomorrow's slate, I have to ask you, what did you think of the Four Nations tournament overall? Were you a fan?
Huge fan, obviously. It was great to see. Disappointing that Team USA didn't win, but this was like a great primer for what you kind of mentioned. Like what we're gonna see next year when it comes to the Olympics. Kind of the same scheduling. There's gonna be a 2-3 week break, whatever it is, in the middle of the season. Getting the players used to that, getting new fans excited for the Olympics, to finally have the best players back on the ice. The last time the players were out there in the Olympics was 2014. So to see them get it primed for next year was absolutely awesome. To see a full slate of teams next year will be great. It was fantastic, an absolute win for the NHL and hockey overall.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Now, how much taxing time do you think it took on these players who came out and played, especially Team USA and Team Canada? Because we know how physical both of those teams played in that game last night and overall in the whole tournament. Are you worried about some of these players, even the ones that didn't face injury, going down the stretch now?
I think we have to be, and it's really by team-by-team, player-by-player basis. For the New York Rangers, I'm a Rangers fan. JT Miller, Vinny Trocheck, Chris Kreider, and Adam Fox all on Team USA. Zibanejad was on Team Sweden. So like 5 of their players, for the USA players, really played a lot, and they have to play tomorrow against the Buffalo Sabres. So I'm really interested in the Buffalo Sabres money line tomorrow. I'm already on that. I'll also be specifically looking to Tage Thompson for a goal once that gets posted. Tage Thompson was one of the snubs for Team USA. He really should have been there. He will be there next year for the Olympic roster. So a lot of players playing heavy minutes for Team USA is where I'll be looking. And then I also want to look at the Winnipeg Jets. Connor Hellebuyck, as you mentioned, played a ton. Kyle Connor was scratched, didn't play in the last game, so I think that's fine. But Josh Morrissey was dealing with an illness, did not play in the finale last night. That is a major impact. So there could be some situations where I may be looking to fade the Winnipeg Jets for as good as they were in the first half of the season. They're going to have a backup goalie in there, at least in the first few games. And then their defense won't be as good without Josh Morrissey, who's been not just great this year, but over the past few years, he has been super solid. And then I also want to look to Mark Scheifele for either shots or goals. He was also kind of one of the snubs for Team Canada. He's having a great year out there for the Jets. So I want to buy into essentially good players who were snubs, like they're snubs for a reason, right? They're not like every player's a snub. Like Jason Robinson for Team USA, Clayton Keller, some of these players that were apparent snubs, they're good and they have this extra motivation, and it's a little bit of a fun narrative to buy into.
Yeah, they're absolutely going to want to step up. What do you think it's going to be like in the locker room between Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner? We know Mitch Marner set up Connor McDavid in overtime for that beautiful goal on Connor Hellebuck. Well, he's teammates with Austin Matthews. Austin Matthews on Team USA taking the loss because of that play. Do you think those guys are just going to hit the ice and be back to normal out there, Tom?
I do. I think they'll have their jabs and what have you behind closed doors. But, when the puck drops, like it's game time, it's business time. They are in a very tight Eastern Conference race. They have a tough matchup, on this side of the break to get things going versus the Carolina Hurricanes, who we know are super strong. So, have your fun in practice, have your fun behind closed doors. But once the puck drops, it's game time for all of these teams and all these players that were, teammates. Now they're facing off against each other. Now they're back to being teammates, whatever it might be. Like, it's time to get things rolling back in the right direction.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think there might be a little bit of a slow start for maybe Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby out there for their teams after the celebrations and Nathan McKinnon, but hopefully those players just get back right into the fold of things. I do have a little bit more concern for Jordan Binnington and Connor Hellebuck hitting the ice again with how taxing the whole tournament would have been on those goaltenders. As we know, goaltenders like to have that time off. So especially Jordan Binnington, who played every single game of it. But you're liking the Buffalo Sabres versus your New York Rangers tomorrow. So they're coming in at plus 100 on the money line. Do you think they have to win that in a higher scoring game, Tom, or do you think they can really lock down tomorrow?
So, the Sabres haven't been good on defense for the majority of the season. I think everyone knows that. But the Rangers, the struggles that they've had are apparent on offense and defense. And you can say that they were improving, especially in January. They were much better than they were in November and December, especially December. It was a terrible month for them. But, just given the fact that Trocheck, Miller, Kreider, Fox, the Zibanejad, like their main players who all haven't been great, especially Zibanejad and Kreider, like their main quote unquote offensive players haven't been great. And now they have these extra games, maybe a little bit, more tired. I think we could see the Sabres win this game 3-1, 4-2. So I'm not really interested in the total. I would certainly side with the under just because I think the Rangers will come out slow. And I think the Sabres come away with this win. I think there's going to be a lack of shots from the Rangers. I think the Sabres will try to pour things on because there's going to be some tired legs out there, especially if the Rangers take some penalty killers. JT Miller, Chris Kreider, and Vinny Trocheck are their main penalty killers, and they're going to be out there a step slow. Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins, I know he hasn't been great this year. Paterka, like they will pile up the shots against the Rangers.
Oh, they absolutely will. And the Buffalo Sabres have been one of those teams that are strong in that first period. I would look for them to come out nice and strong, be able to put the puck in the back of the net right away to start off this game and take the first period. You can look at them first period money line or alt puck line. I would even do laying the half a goal. Now, looking at the Washington Capitals versus the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Washington Capitals, Ovechkin. How do you think Ovechkin feels not being included, not having a Team Russia out there and no one else on this team being included? Are you looking for the Capitals to roll hot? We know how strong this team has been to start the season, Tom.
I think Ovechkin probably loves the rest at this point in his career, especially after the leg injury he had just a month or so ago. So maybe a little bit disappointed that he wasn't there, but the rest is certainly great for him. As you mentioned, there was not a single Capitals player on any of the four rosters, so they are fully rested, fully ready to go, and they're just so much better than the Penguins. So I love the Capitals on the three-way money line, fully rested, ready to go. There's some reports that Crosby's dealing with a bit of an elbow issue. Malkin should be back in the line for the Penguins, but the Penguins just don't have it. It's all about the Capitals on the three-way money line coming in at minus 110.
Okay, Tom, does Ovi reach Wayne Gretzky's record?
Absolutely. He will get it done. They'll feed him the extra shots.
Okay, we got to jump to one more. We got right after the break for NHL Today here on the grid. Tom, thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four, because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fun a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat, because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into NHL today over here on the grid. I'm Joe Madden. We're going to jump into my best bets in just a moment. I want to quickly talk a couple of futures that I am liking that you can still get in on the season. Now, the first one I'm going to look here is at the Hart Trophy. And MVP from last year was Nathan MacKinnon. And I do think he has every opportunity of running it back. Coming into this, 57 games played, 21 goals, 66 assists, a total of 87 points. I know Leon Draisaitl's a front runner right now, but I do think he can get overshadowed on the Edmonton Oilers by Connor McDavid. So I will be looking at Nathan MacKinnon to get that Hart Trophy. And I also think you have to circle Ovechkin to hit Wayne Gretzky's or surpass Wayne Gretzky's record. That's coming in at plus 190 right now. Ovechkin has just been on fire, and we saw after the break that he had from that leg injury, him come out and play so strong. And I'm expecting that out of him right away tomorrow in the matchup. So we will see the Washington Capitals facing the Pittsburgh Penguins tomorrow. And that is a game I have so highly circled because the matchup between Ovi and Sidney Crosby has been always an incredible one out there on the ice. And looking at this one, we do have the Washington Capitals rolling in as a heavy favorite and a total of 6.5. High total for this one, which I was kind of surprised by. But Ovechkin has been able to score on the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we know the Penguins have struggled defensively this season. So Ovechkin to come out and put up a goal in this one is definitely something I have circled. But with what we saw out of him coming back from that leg injury in those couple of games, it wasn't uncommon in those first couple for him to get 1, 2, 3 goals. I do believe he got a hat trick in that first week back. So I'm looking for him to come out so strong versus his defense. The kill here is so weak at 79.6% for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Look for Ovechkin to really rack it up in this game. I will take Ovechkin for the anytime goal and 2+ goals versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then the Washington Capitals to come out strong on that puck line in the first period. This is a team that will be fully rested, as Tom Vecchio was mentioning. None of their players did hit the ice for the Four Nations. They've had their practices. They are fully ready to take on the Pittsburgh Penguins, who have struggled this season. So Give me Ovechkin to break Wayne Gretzky's record at plus 190. The Washington Capitals coming in here on the puck line in the first period, and OV for 2+ goals. Then I'm going to move on to the matchup here between the Seattle Kraken and the Florida Panthers. Now, still concerns around Matthew Tkachuk. We're not sure what that injury is that he sustained in the Four Nations. But when we look here at the Seattle Kraken, this is a team that I haven't been trusting defensively or offensively on the season. I do think they'll struggle versus the Florida Panthers with or without Matthew Tkachuk in the lineup. Excuse me. We do know was a ton of players out here for Florida that did hit the ice in the Four Nations, but I think they have enough playmakers no matter what to still limit the Seattle Kraken's ability to get those pucks in the back of the net. Give me the Seattle Kraken's team total under 2.5 versus the Florida Panthers. When we look at the Anaheim Ducks versus the Boston Bruins, we have a total of 5.5 tomorrow in that matchup. John Gibson should be in net here for the Anaheim Ducks, and he gives me concern. I do think the Boston Bruins will come in nice and strong in this one, be able to put the puck up in the back of the net. We know Charlie McAvoy out of this lineup for a while, so defensively we will see those struggles out of Boston. Even though both of these teams average under 3 goals per game, I'm expecting a limited amount of defense in this game. Give me the over 5.5, and I do think Boston should be able to get the win. The Winnipeg Jets were on fire before the break. They won their 8 games before the break, and I'm looking for them to continue where they left off. Now, they will face the St. Louis Blues. Joel Hofer actually is expected in net, and I do think Eric Crombie will be in for the Winnipeg Jets, even though Connor Hellebuck is still the expected goalie everywhere that you do look. Look for the Winnipeg Jets to roll in a nice and hot, go over their team total of 3.5 in this matchup. I'm expecting the firepower out of Winnipeg in this game. They've got so many playmakers. Best power play in the league, that power play converting at 33.3%. And the kill here are the St. Louis Blues, even though I love their playmakers like Jordan Kyrou, Jake Neighbors, that kill is only 71.3%. If they find themselves in the box, they're going to be in a lot of trouble here versus the Winnipeg Jets. So last but not least, quickly, 2 more, you guys. Carolina versus Toronto. I think the Carolina Hurricanes, with the success they've had over the Leafs, winning the last 5, can get the win coming out of the break. And then there's no denying the LA Kings, their ability at home. Give me the LA Kings top line versus the Utah Hockey Club. You guys, thanks for joining me here on this Friday for NHL Today on the Grid.
I talked about AZ Fun a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter, and the league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.